Hello, everybody. Welcome to the STEM Inspired podcast where passion meets purpose. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by DeMarcus Woolfork, and he is a driven PhD student and experienced researcher. DeMarcus's journey in STEM is truly inspiring, and we're going to dive into how he got into this dynamic field. We'll also explore his unique transition from an HBCU to a medical research institution and how he built invaluable relationships with mentors along the way. So he's going to give some great invaluable advice for students, professionals, anybody that's considering a similar path. So let's go ahead and jump right on in. Thank you for agreeing to be a part of the podcast, first of all.
Thank you for the invitation and thank you for that introduction.
Absolutely. So I know I kind of touched a little bit about you, just a tad on the surface, but can you give all of our listeners just a brief introduction of yourself, professionally and personally?
Okay. Well, I'm native of a small town in Georgia called Montezuma. So I was born in Americas and raised in Montezuma, where I matriculated through the Macon County school system. After I graduated from Macon County, I pursued my undergraduate degree at Fort Valley State University. Um, and after leaving Fort Valley State, I actually left the academic realm for a while to explore other revenues of income as well as career aspects. But I was eventually led back to the sciences, where I related through the Medical University of South Carolina to earn my master's degree. And now I am pursuing my PhD at the University of Maryland in College Park.
Yeah, we went to the same university, y'all. So
Oh, we
we
did?
both MUSC alum
Yeah. From
and
HBCU.
HBCU alum. I'm happy to hear like all these different things about your journey, what you did, how you got there. So that leads me to my next question. How did you get into the STEM field with all those different things you talked about earlier?
Well, initially, my interest in science started as a kid. I was so fascinated by weather that it was crazy. So I was initially wanted to be a meteorologist, that was my initial thought. Even to the point where I was thinking about like tornado chasing it, just because of the excitement, the changes in weather, how quickly things change, and like
Oh, you bold, huh?
having to understand that. But when I got into high school and I had to take biology, that is where like my interest really honed into the life sciences. And then pursuing my undergraduate degree in biology at Fort Valley State only deepened that. So after Fort Valley State, and then going out into trying different things, and then going back to science, I kind of felt like it was solidified that STEM is going to be the career path that's going to be best for me. And so that's kind of my journey in a nutshell, I guess, a quick summary of it. But yeah, I'd encourage everybody to at least um, go into, not to go into per se, but to at least dabble in some part of STEM, whether it's science, engineering, math, or technology. But
That's so true. I mean, I feel like with a lot of scientists, it always starts like as a kid, just being introduced to that one thing that sparked your interest. I mean, for you, it was the weather. I think for me, it was like forensics and crime scenes. So,
I actually went through a few different phases. So at first it was the weather, and then I also thought about like medicine, like most scientists. I'm thinking, oh, I want to be a doctor, and then I did research.
hmm yeah, I thought I wanted to be a doctor too, and then I did some shadowing, and I said, "Oh no, this is too much. I'm overstimulated. Don't even worry about it. I'll choose a different profession." Also, you went to Fort Valley,
Yeah.
the HBCU,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and we both shared that perspective and that experience.
Yeah.
And I know it's different when you transition to, R1 or medical research institution where it's not many black people there versus in undergrad, we were surrounded by people that look like us. And so, how did you transition into that environment considering like how different and opposite sides of the spectrum these places are?
I think honestly, what helped me to transition and be comfortable at the Medical University of South Carolina was taking that gap time from my undergrad to my master's, and like really getting to know who I am as an adult and as a person. Because even though like some of us do leave far away from home for undergrad, but a lot of us stay really close. But for my master's program, I was leaving a state and I was going to be in a new environment alone. So I needed to be secure in who I was and all of that. So
Hmm. Hmm.
after a while, you get your, just like any other place, you form your clique or your group or support group, and those people help you get through the trying times and those tests and all of that kind of stuff. So it was just basically knowing who I was, being secure in that person, making sure I kept my sight and focus on getting my degree, not being timid, because
Hmm.
science, you are going to come across a lot of people who are brilliant scientists, but not so much of a friendly person. So you have to make sure you are ready to encounter any and everything, especially in a STEM environment. I prepared myself using that time that I took off from my undergrad to graduate school.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm glad you said that taking that time between before transitioning, because at least for me, I did not take time. I went straight from Savannah State to MUSC, so it definitely was a huge culture shock. But I'm glad that you said like knowing who you are is the biggest one, like being authentic. I mean, sometimes it'll come with a little pushback at first, but you just stay persistent, persevere through it.
I feel like we as a people bring a really unique aspect to the sciences that if we were not actively involved in it, that those aspects would be left out. And
Hmm.
so, as a people, Black, African American, however you want to put it, colored scientists, we bring the diversity as well as significance to the sciences that we're studying. Even though I came from that HBCU background, I definitely had to immerse myself into the environment that I was in. Um,
Yeah.
so that kind of helps with um, just being able to like peep out the environment before you have to speak or say something and know how to address the audience that's there. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. But I think like being your authentic self helps you know how to speak up for yourself because a lot of times it can be, I would say, a little bit intimidating, especially if you're not used to being outnumbered in certain spaces. So I think like learning how to speak up for yourself is like a huge portion of being authentic throughout the
Mhm.
process. You talked about building relationships and forming your tribe of support. So, how did you build those relationships with mentors and peers along the way, and how has it helped you during your educational journey?
Well, in undergraduate and graduate school, it's easier to form those relationships with peers, um, because you're going through the same things. You're forming study groups. People are like, after the semester starts and grades start to come out, people will definitely navigate or gravitate towards those students that are doing well or better in classes, and so you form friends that way. Groups doing activities, all type of things like that. So I was in marching band and like beta club and all kind of things. So you had friends that way, But it's also important to develop those relationships with your teachers and professors because those are going to be the people who are going to help you to propel to the next level because they can write letters of recommendations for you to get into those programs. They know what type of student you are by spectating you in class and having to grade your assignments, read your works, and all of that type of thing. So they
Mhm.
are very important, and it's very important to establish those relationships early on, because those people can also help to guide you through your current program, um, and
Mhm.
and and they are the people who will advocate for you in the places where another authoritative figure is having a student issue. So for me, it was most of the time it was like just being a good student in class helped to um, form those relationships. Of course, going to office hours, um, just being in the professor's face, asking questions. Um, Weirdly, I had one very weird mentor relationship that formed from a crazy incident where at Fort Valley State, where I actually failed my biology lab that the professor was teaching, but I passed the biology course after the biology lab grade was integrated into it. And she was like, "How did you do that?" And so we instantly stuck to each other after that incident. So, um, yeah. So, and then in at the medical school, Medical University of South Carolina. Sorry, I actually developed that mentor relationship, based on scientific interests. So people that have labs or PIs that have labs will definitely, or they are quicker to accept students who align with their research interests. And so at the Medical University of South Carolina, my research was involving neuroendocrine prostate cancer, and that was it's interesting to me because African American men are one like very highly affected, if not the most highly affected group of men to be diagnosed with prostate cancer, and then for it to be neuroendocrine, it's just adds another layer onto it where they have like a prognosis of a year to a year and a half to survive, and it's really no treatment because they've gone through all of the rest of them. Um, and so, like those type of connections definitely helped me to get to where I am now. So, like both
Mhm.
those mentors I mentioned before um, wrote letters of recommendations for me for my doctoral program, and I will forever be grateful to them. I'm actually still in contact with them, so I will write them or email them out of the blue, and they will graciously just send me whatever I need after I ask for it. So I'm so thankful for the relationships that I have developed, and if I were to advise someone else into um, forming a mentor mentee relationship, I would just say to be genuine, um, and not try to like cover who you are or pull the wool over the mentor's face. Like let them see who you are. They even if that is showing your weaknesses, they are there to help, and for the most part, they do a good job at it. So if you find a mentor or someone you are interested in being a mentor, get to know the person. Make sure the person has maybe some interests that you have, or maybe they have a similar background or something that's important to build those deep connections with somebody who's going to be helping you along your educational goals. Yeah.
That's so true. Those relationships can go a really long way. I mean, my old professor from Savannah State, I text her like a few weeks ago and I'm like, hey, I got this interview for this faculty position. What can I do? Please help me.
Right.
And with
And
her
they have
help,
good
I
tips.
ended up
They always
securing
have good tips.
positions.
They
So
really, yeah, they really have some good tips. And then they also
mhm.
a lot of times we get into a situation and we'll get close-minded, and that mentor who isn't in that same situation has so many different outlooks that they can offer you. So it's important to be honest and 100% yourself with that person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know you had your support system, your mentors, but I'm sure you faced some challenges along the way. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you face in your academic or professional career, and what did you do, and how did you overcome those challenges?
I'd say the largest challenge I've faced getting to where I am would be um, having discouraging administrators over a program. So you have people who you think have your interests at heart will tell you, I don't think you should do this or go on to the next level. You should stop here without valid reason. And it's important to take a moment and reflect on the statement that they gave you. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just try and kind of get something from it, from what they were saying, and persevere. Uh, Basically, you have to be the epitome of perseverance, and uh, if you don't have that, then I would definitely form a group of a very supportive group, um, because it's going to be important. Because taking something or hearing something like that from someone in a high position, it definitely beats down your morale. It makes you feel less than you are. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you have to like bounce back from that. You can't stay in that situation too long. So you have to again, you have to know who you are before you go into the program, like I did, and like I just had to at the time that it happened, I had to remember who I was coming into the program and why I was going into that program. Um, and then of course there are procedures and protocols in places at universities for such occasions where if you feel like you've been mistreated by somebody, usually the student ombudsman person is a good person to reach out to. And then again, those mentor that you've built relationships with can give you some insight onto into why um, the conversation or the interaction may have gone left when you weren't expecting that. And so it's important to reach out to the resources that you have. Like, well, first it's important to know what resources are available to you in that occasion, and then to not be hesitant about reaching out to those persons who can help. And a lot of times the person who you feel has done something to mistreat you will often want to um, right their wrong. So, but it is still up to you as a person who's been mistreated or felt like you were mistreated to either accept that or not. Okay,
But
thank you.
yeah, we always gonna have naysayers, like haters gonna hate. And I do remember too, specifically during my program, that I had somebody in my lab, a faculty member, tell me, "Hey, you got this baby. You don't be in here like that. You not gonna finish. You can't finish." And that sucked to hear that. It was very
It's a,
upsetting, very
like
upsetting. But I would say though, I feel like that upsetting event made me say, you know what? I know I can do this. And ain't nobody gonna tell me just because I have a young child or a young baby that's an infant that I can't do it. So, you know,
yeah, it's
it's
very
not
upsetting.
about what they say, it's about what we do.
And then the fact that they base it off of things that are so far away from your intellectual capacity is what makes it so much worse. It's like my personal life has nothing to do with what I'm doing here educationally. Like if I'm not sick in a hospital or on bed rest or something like that, then I don't understand why. any kind of demographics outside of academia is even involved in the conversation. But it happens.
It does happen, and that's why I say too, like, don't overshare. Make sure you read the room, know who you're around, make sure you're aware of what you say around certain people, because for one, you don't know who knows who, and people talk. They have groups and circles, so be very aware of those things when it comes to the politics within the academic setting.
Definitely.
So, what are your future career aspirations? I know you're going through the program, but sometimes like it's good to dream and think about your exit plan. So, what's on your mind regarding the future?
Well, I haven't decided specifically what I want to do. I do know I don't want to go into academia. So I'm either going to stay in the government sector or go into industry. But eventually, I do want to be uh, my own or a PI of a lab. So I don't know. I might do like a industry postdoc or something, and then go back to government. I'm not sure. Work a few years in industry, but it's important to me in that in whatever I do that I am involved in outreach, especially for African American students in STEM. And that's important because, like, growing up in Macon County, I was not introduced to science as a career outside of being a science teacher, um, because everything there is everything else except for science. And so when it really it wasn't until I started at Fort Valley State that I was introduced to doctors who were actual scientists. Um,
Yeah.
So I think that's important for young students to know and to see that, hey, all doctors are not medical doctors first, and then that, hey, there's a black man who's a biomedical researcher. He has a title or a degree of doctor. I can do that too, or a little black girl doing the same, seeing you and saying the same thing. It's like
Hmm.
show them that they are capable of doing it, and that if we can do it, then they can do it, and that it's a rewarding field to go into. Um, a lot of us, or for me especially, as when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor specifically to help people. But as a researcher, I feel like I help people even more. Um,
Hmm.
Directly as a doctor, you directly help your patient, but as a researcher, I help the doctor to help the patient. So it's 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 a very rewarding career path. And so I just would definitely try to do whatever I can do when I am in my positions to increase the number of black scientists, increase the number of young kids who are interested in STEM fields,
Hmm.
and although I don't know exactly what I want to do, I do want to be a mentor in some capacity to help um, diversify the STEM field.
Absolutely. And I think, to piggyback off what you said, it's very easy to like get in these programs and kind of like just be so zoned in, focused, and just trying to get out. One thing I've learned too after completing and just going through like the job market process and all these different things, especially right now.
I'm praying and I'm hoping and praying by the time I graduate, all of that is settled, so I don't have as much competition finding a job. Uh,
Yes, I'm praying that that it works out for you in that way. I mean, I had expectations of where I wanted my career to go, and I don't think it's not going that way. Like I think it's great that I was able to get two faculty positions. Like that's great, but I think it's making more room for me to really attain that goal, that long term goal that I really want, which is being like fully independent with my own lab and the
right.
entrepreneurial.
Right.
aspect. So I think, everything works out in the way it should. So if things don't go as planned, y'all don't get discouraged. It's okay to pivot.
It
There's
is
nothing
okay.
wrong with it.
It's,
What advice would you give students who are seeking to go down a similar path as you did?
again, just know yourself. If you need to take time to do that, then do so. Um, some people some people also don't do the same type of transitions that we did from HBCU to PWI or whatever, because there are a lot of graduate programs at HBCU, so you can stay in the HBCU pipeline through your
Mm-hmm.
grad um, um, education. But if you are going to change, make sure you're very, very strong-willed person. Make sure you are ready to receive criticism, whether it's constructive or not. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you're so basically have some tough skin. Um, don't take everything too seriously, because especially if you're in an environment where you have to make your support group, um,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing how supportive that group is going to be at a really stressful time could be detrimental. So just try to deal with your stresses as they come and don't let things pile up. Um, and then take every opportunity that is out there. If you have to research for opportunities, if you have to ask people like what did they do, somebody else has already done some of the things or most of the things we're gonna do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you talk to people if they even if it's just talking to someone who looks like you, they will probably have some great advice as to some program or some pipeline that they went through um, and that helped them to get there. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Make sure you network. Networking is going to be extremely important. And networking is going to help you keep those connections across the nation and globally, where
Mm-hmm.
get into a place where you need to collaborate, then you already have those connections in place. Um, so yeah, and and persevere. Be the epitome of perseverance. So if perseverance was a person, you would want that to be you.
No, for real. Persevere. Ooh, perseverance is key to get through.
It is
You got to really be able to encourage yourself in certain times
a lot
during
of
the process.
situations where you have to encourage yourself. Definitely.
Yes, yes. So I was gonna say, like, lastly, how can our scholars connect with you? Do you have any socials that you want to provide? How can people learn more about you and get to know you more?
So I use my LinkedIn mostly. So they can connect with me on LinkedIn as far as social media. I update my LinkedIn with important things that are happening. I've been neglecting writing my thank you. The first year of my program is over status, but I'll get around to it. So they can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And then if you need some other things, then I can introduce or that I can introduce them to, then I will message or they can message me and I will give them my email address so that we can talk about some other stuff or introduce them to those things.
Well, I am so happy that we got a chance to do this. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of the STEM Spire podcast. We pray and hope that all of you guys were inspired by today's insightful conversation. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.